Hello audience, and welcome to a new video here on the channel that I'm hoping to make a yearly tradition. It's simple and fun. I reached out to a bunch of author friends here on the channel and to my agent to see if a bunch of authors that he's connected to with as well would like to talk about their favorite books they read in 2024. And my gosh, did I get more in response than I expected. We have a ton of phenomenal writers in the science fiction fantasy space coming through to discuss reads that affected them and are their favorites of 2024. And it was kind of in my head like a challenge as well that's like, hey, I stepped into the author space. Let's see these people step into the book review space. And they delivered. These are some really solid reviews, and I'm thrilled to say there's even some duplicates where there are some books that multiple authors went, fire, this good. But this wouldn't be a fantastic YouTube video without a forced-in, shoehorned game mechanic. So why don't you all vote in the comments down below which author did the best job and you would most like to see become a booktuber. Maybe we can pressure them into doing it. Wouldn't that be fun? So without any further ado, go ahead and take it away, Evan Winter.
Hello, my name's Evan Winter. I'm the author of The Rage of Dragons, and not too long ago, Daniel Greene was kind enough to ask me to come on and talk about one of my favorite books from 2024. And when you get an offer like that, you are quick to say yes. So I'm here and I'm going to talk to you about a book that I thought was absolutely brilliant from just the last year. Before I get going, I do want to talk a little bit about our genre, the genre that we all tend to read here, science fiction and fantasy. I want to talk about it because I love our genre. I love the fact that what it really does is it lets you think about the world in a slightly different way than is sort of typical. It takes you out of our world, but also so much of what's happening in the stories that are some of the favorites, the classics, the ones that people absolutely fall in love with, is that those stories give us something more to think about the world that we all live in. So that's when I think that our genre and books in our genre are working at their absolute best. And this book is no exception to that sort of rule of thumb for me. So this is the book I'm talking about. It's one of my favorites from last year, and it's Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. M.L. Wong also wrote Sword of Kaigen, which probably many of you are familiar with. If not, it's another excellent read. Pick it up if you haven't already. But Blood Over Brighthaven, here again, is a book that was published last year in 2024, and it is about a young woman about to achieve something in her society that no other young woman has achieved before her. And if she can achieve it, if she can do what she's setting out to do, she gets to peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And so much of this story is about what happens if you get that peek behind the curtain and you don't like what you see. Like, what do you do then? What do you do? And Blood Over Brighthaven is a wonderful exploration of that question. It's a wonderful and exquisite look at the idea of what it means to be somebody who's conflicted, who's struggling with the way things are, and trying to figure out, where do you go from here? What do you do? What's reasonable and what's unreasonable, and how far you're willing to go. And so it's a great adventure story. It's a wonderful second world fantasy. It is dark academia, and it's a brilliant piece of fiction that not only works on a level of entertainment and escapism, but also, and importantly for me and to my taste, it works on a level of adding a little bit of clarity for the reader about what it means to be a human being in the world today. So if you have not read this book, if you have not heard of it or seen it or whatever, pick it up. It's at all your favorite retailers, sellers, whatever. You can get it anywhere that good books are sold. Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. Thank you.
Hey Daniel, Happy New Year. Christopher Rocchio here of Sun Eater, and you caught me a little bit by surprise with this video, because I do not have a physical copy of my favorite book that I read last year, a favorite sci-fi fantasy book at least, and that was The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, which I actually read early to do a blurb, and I thought it was just great. It's a science fantasy, which you know is kind of my thing. I sort of joked to my friend this morning that it's kind of like Final Fantasy if done by Steven Erikson, and so I think folks who like the sort of depth, not just character work, but of world in particular. This is really a book that you can sink your teeth into, and I hope people will check it out. I think Benjamin did a great job, and I'm really excited to read book 2. Bye.
Hello, my name is Lynn Buchanan. I'm the author of The Dollmakers, and today I'm going to tell you guys about my favorite book that I read in 2024. And that is The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. Now, this is not a fantasy book, which is odd for me because normally all I read is fantasy. But a coworker of mine recommended this to me, so I picked it up. It is a Arthurian retelling, a very shiny Arthurian retelling, as all the lights in my room catch on this very shiny cover. Anyway, it's historical retelling, and there's like magic in it, kind of, question mark. You know, it's hard to tell if there's actual magic or if it's just Merlin and Nimue being awful people, which are not mutually exclusive in this retelling, to be honest. But anyway, the writing is beautiful. I'd never heard of Bernard Cornwell until I read this book, but his writing is just fantastic. If you like really interesting, complex characters and the Arthurian legend, I really recommend you give this a try.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for inviting me to talk about my favorite book of 2024. This past year, I actually read a lot of books, a lot more than I thought I was going to. I guess it was just a year to get my mind off things, and so I tended to read a whole lot. And so thinking about what my favorite book was of 2024 actually took a minute. I went through quite a few, and I landed on Tananarive Due's Reformatory. This book, I'm going to call this my favorite book of 2024 because it's the one I think that stayed with me the most. This book is gripping, it's haunting, it's brilliant, it's heart-wrenching, and yet it's also inspiring. The story is set in post-World War II Jim Crow Florida, and it's about a reformatory for juvenile boys, right? And it's actually about a real reformatory, or at least based on one. And even though it's based on this real reformatory, it of course brings in the supernatural and everything else. And it may be one of the most terrifying books I think I've read in a while. And I think what Tananarive Due does so well in here is that the most frightening monsters in this book are not the ghosts. So keep that in mind. They are not the ghosts. I think I've been into Tananarive Due since her Immortal Blood series. And so I was really happy to get back into this one and enjoy it so well. I think she's created like a real masterpiece here. I think that brings us face to face with this shameful and disturbing past that she's trying to highlight through history, as well as using the supernatural. So yeah, that's my book, and that's my plug for the best book of 2024. Read it, folks. Thanks.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for the invite to chat to you quickly about my favourite book of 2024. I didn't read a lot of novels last year, but all the ones I did, I loved. They're all 5-star reads for me. So it was a good year in that department. My favourite of them all was, The Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. I think this book must appeal to Gwyn's sensibilities because I recommended it to two of my sons, Ed and Will, over at the Brothers Gwyn, and they enjoyed it so much they both voted it as their favourite novel of the year as well. There's loads I could say about this book. The prose is beautiful. It's the kind of book I read and think, I wish I could write like that. It really is masterfully crafted. I loved the character work. The characters in there I either rooted for or hated and despised, and they're very distinct, excellent voices. The world feels real, the plot drives along, the ending is fantastic, and also the goblins in this book are nasty bastards. But more than anything, if I was going to say just one thing about this book, I'd say that it made me feel. If a book makes me feel, then it's a 5-star read for me, and this book made me feel all the emotions. I laughed, I shed tears, I felt rage, deep, blinding rage towards a certain character and a certain event. So yeah, all round I think it was just a fabulous read, and I would highly recommend it. Daughter's War, Christopher Buehlman.
Hi, I'm Will White. I'm the author of the Cradle series, and the best thing I read in 2024 was Shadow Slave by Guilty 3. Shadow Slave is a web novel, and I read over 200 books last year, counting volumes of web novels, because I read a lot of web novels. And definitely the one that stood out was Shadow Slave. It was recommended to me like 2 or 3 years ago by a fan, and they said, "Oh, Will, I think you'll love Shadow Slave." And I read the first few chapters, and it didn't grab me immediately. I kind of bounced off it for a while, and in 2024 I thought, I've heard a lot of great things about this. Let me give it another shot. Boy, I could not put it down. I read through the whole thing super fast, and a big fan of Shadow Slave. It's got a great game-style system that really is integrated in the world really well. The worlds really, and I think, in my opinion, that and Dungeon Crawler Carl are the best game system series out right now. So check out Shadow Slave by Guilty 3. It's a web novel. I think you're going to like it.
Hi, Daniel. I'm Mer Lafferty, and last year I read lots of books, but across a lot of genres. When it comes to my favorite sci-fi fantasy book, I would have to say The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. It's got romance, it's got cooking, but best of all, it's got large seahorses that the characters can ride, and if escapism is not wish fulfillment fantasies, what is? So I'm gonna say The Spell Shop, because I needed a book hug, and that's where I got it. Thanks for asking. And anytime you want me to talk about books, just ask.
Hey everyone, I'm Evan Lycombe, author of Angie Kills a King, and my favorite book of 2024 was The Will of the Many by James Islington. Islington's writing, his characters, his world building, everything is so far improved from the Lycanius trilogy in my opinion. And I thought Lycanius trilogy was pretty cool, but this is something way, way above that. I think the first person perspective works really, really well here. It's got the school trope, but it feels really fresh. This book is pretty long, but there was no part of it at all that I thought didn't need to be in there or that I thought was boring. And that ending, oh my god, James Islington can write an ending. I can't wait for book 2.
Hi there. I'm Daryl Gregory. I'm a writer, live in Seattle. We're here right now. And the best novel that I read in 2024 was this one, a horror movie by Paul Tremblay. I could just show you the picture. I don't have the book right now, and that's because whenever I find a really great book, I tend to immediately try to get other people to read it and put it into some people's hands. And there's some family members right now who are reading it and being horrified right now as we speak. I love this book. It's about a group of kids in the 80s who are making sort of a homegrown horror movie. Part of the novel follows that group, and then there's also the script for that movie, and we're cutting between the script and the actual making of it. And then we also have a third timeline happening in the present, where that movie, which never got finished, is now being has become a cult legend and is now being made into a Hollywood movie. And the one surviving cast and crew member is around to tell the tale, is being hired as a consultant, and things get very weird from that point on. It's not only Paul's a fantastic writer. I think this is his best book. It's not only scary, it's not only tense, but well, here's how tense it is. At one point, I got so nervous I had to put the book down and walk away from it. And then he dragged me right back, because one thing he does really well is the tension builds through all three of these storylines. What you learn about the making of the movie with these kids gets teased by the script, and then you find out what's happening in the future, and you're building this story, and it's just amazing. Very creepy, beautifully written, and so well constructed. That book again is Paul Tremblay's The Horror Movie. You should get it.
Hi, my name is Sam Miller, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to tell you about the best book that I read in 2024, which is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I think Paul Tremblay is just like one of the best horror writers out there now, and if you're a fan, you know that no two books are the same. He never writes the same book twice. Each new book is a new kind of horrifying and takes you to a whole new place that you've never been before, and you're probably going to hate it, but in a really great way, because it's really fun, and he makes characters who feel so alive, and you're just on this journey with them, even though you know it's not going to go great for any of you. And Horror Movie is a really fresh and new take on the cursed film, which is like a genre I think a lot of us have read before, and that there's lots of examples of in real life and in fiction, and I am always a big fan of it, and Paul's take on it is really great. It's like a following the lone survivor of a cult classic unfinished horror film from the 90s that has become a huge object of cult fascination, even though it was never finished. And the protagonist, the narrator of this book, is the only one who's still alive from the filming of it. He's only ever referred to by his character's name, the Thin Kid. It's about his involvement in an attempt to reboot the film and cash in on its massive cult following. And it's really scary, it's really dark, it goes places that you don't see coming, and it has a very slow build to its gruesomeness. So love it, really highly recommend Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Now I know what you're saying, who the heck are you and why should I care what you have to say about a book? And I don't know why you should care, but my name is Sam, and I write horror and science fiction, like The Blade Between, The Art of Starving, and Blackfish City. Most of my fiction is super queer, and Horror Movie is not, but that's cool, we can still hang.
Hi Daniel, I want to recommend a book called Win Among Crows. This is by Veronica Roth. It's a novella, so it's a fast read. It's set in Chicago. If you've ever been in Chicago, anyone, this book feels like Chicago, but it is all mythological creatures all the time. I don't think there's a single just human wandering through the book. But for all of that, it is a book that's dealing with intergenerational trauma. It is twisty, it is full of intrigue, and it's also just a book with a lot of heart. I was in love with this book from the very first page. It's got all of this great atmospheric detail, and there are all of these questions that kind of keep pulling you through the book, like, what is up with that? And when are we going to find out? And none of the twists land where I expected them to land. So highly recommend this, Win Among Crows by Veronica Roth.
What is up, everybody? My name is Adrian M. Gibson, author of Mushroom Blues, my fungal punk noir debut novel. I'm going to share with all of you today my favorite book that I read in 2024, which is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is definitely, out of the 3 books that Andy Weir has released, is easily my top favorite. In very Andy Weir fashion, it takes a human character and puts them in an impossible situation where they have to use ingenuity and science and problem solving in order to get themselves out of that problem. In this case, it's a character who woke up on a spaceship in the middle of space, not knowing who they are, where they are, what they're doing. But what ends up happening is this character goes through so much emotional turmoil in a very convincing way, in a very human way. But there is a big twist, which I will not spoil, and that twist ends up becoming fundamental to this story as a whole, bringing in a new character who I absolutely love. And it really works to give the main character a foil for all of their personality flaws, all of their strengths, and the two of them are able to work together to solve this impossible problem that they both face. And what it ended up being was just an incredibly emotional read, one that I did not expect to be so emotionally invested in. The trajectory, the journey itself is phenomenal, but also the destination is excellent. This is one of the most emotional, bittersweet endings that I've read in a long time, and it made me cry, and it's still with me today. And that to me is the sign of a great book. And so I highly recommend you check out this fantastic book by Andy Weir.
G'day, Daniel. As a lit RPG author, I probably should have picked a lit RPG book as my favorite for 2024, but the outstanding book for me was without question Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. Now, for me, this is a story that's really about theme. Like, the themes were what dragged me through this book, unable to put it down. Until, the very last page. The first way it goes through that is with its characters. Each of these characters are suffering from various forms of oppression, and what makes them the protagonists is the way in which they're fighting for power or for identity against forces that are either trying to deny them that power or erase those identities. But at the same time, they're oblivious to the experiences of others, whether that's others who are likewise making some sort of struggle against the forces that oppress them, or the people that are just trying to live their lives under a system that may not be fair to them, but is something they can make their way through. And the setting is critical to this. It's a very contained and economical setting. And that is in service to creating a culture that's exclusionary and culturally insular, with one of the key themes being the way in which people are othered. The oppressed underclass is very key to that. And the plot goes through peeling back the layers of oppression and insularity and the ways in which the characters don't see beyond their own oppression, but have that peeled back in layers as they come to understand themselves and the world around them in new ways. And this is where this book really shines for me, because it takes such an unflinching look at the complicity of the characters in perpetuating this system, either through their actions or through not looking closer at what's going on around them. And the journey of the main character through some rather unpleasant behavior to start actually examining what she is doing with herself and sort of her, process of growth leads up to a fantastic finale that I was actually scared to have coming, because I was worried that it would undermine everything that's come before, only to be absolutely delighted when it didn't. So right up until the end, this was unquestionably my top book of 2024.
Hi, my name is Django Wexler, and I'm the author of How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. And my favorite book of 2024 was Seth Dickinson's Exordia. Apologies for the cover. I only read an ebook these days. Exordia, why is it my favorite? Because it's weird. I love weird stuff, and this book delivers weird stuff in spades. It's got aliens with a completely unique orthogonal ethical system. It's got space drives that slingshot around death, spaceships that are the mathematical incarnations of unique concepts. It's great. It's about a third alien sci-fi first contact story, about a third tense nuclear thriller on the Kurdistan border, and about a third sort of Andromeda Strain style investigation of a dangerous alien artifact. And somehow they all kind of fit together. It's great. So, it's the kind of book that if someone were to come to me and say, I really couldn't get into it, I would be like, no judgment, absolutely, it's so weird. But it was so right up my alley that I love it, and that makes it my favorite of 2024.
And that has just been the list of badass books that some of your favorite authors consumed in the last 365 days. Hot damn, it did end up affecting my TBR a smidge, because right now I'm reading Hell's Gate by David Weber in a collaboration with James Toulis, and then after that I'm planning on getting to Blood Over Brighthaven, frickin' obviously, Mushroom Blues, and Angie Kills a King. So if you're interested in my TBR in the near future, that it would it be. And thank you oh so much to every author who swung on by, was a part of this. It is absolutely fantastic, and I'm just kind of honored that so many were willing to talk to the goblins for me. It really means the world, and I hope you all enjoyed it. So like and subscribe if you would like to see a similar video put out next year, hopefully with even more authors coming in to be a part of it, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.